Hey everybody, this is Mike Smuts, your favorite real estate agent for the Lehigh Valley, and welcome to Lehigh Valley Living. Today, I have with me a special guest who runs a staging company, and we're going to be talking about staging. So real quick, Chris, to give everybody a rundown of who you are and why you're someone to listen to.
Sure. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, but according to my ID, I'm Christopher Mesch from Staged House of the Lehigh Valley. I have a background of real estate also, but we're not here for that today. But I find it helps me in the staging business to help agents like Mike to come in and kind of help prepare sellers' properties for sale.
Yeah. Thank you. We've had great success with it. My team has definitely used you in the past, and we plan to keep using you in the future now that home selling has become more competitive. It's not put it on the market, sold in 6 hours anymore.
Exactly. We're definitely shifting back to what I call normal.
Yeah, I think that's what... I mean, this is not the topic of the video, but I do think it's crazy that people are freaking out about this, agents and sellers alike, and that we're really just getting back to what it should be.
Absolutely.
So I figured I'd bring you on, give some people some advice on getting the most out of your house through staging. So I guess the first question maybe we should go over is, brand new house, we're walking in. What's the first thing you're looking for?
I want to be able to walk into that house and picture my own belongings in it. I don't want to feel like I want to feel like I'm walking into a house and not somebody's home. It's probably number one. And
a house, but not somebody's home.
Correct.
You elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I have a conversation with the sellers when I arrive, basically that I'm here to tell them things they probably do not want to hear. I'm the bad guy, and I often say sometimes your realtor probably knows these things but doesn't want to say it because he has to have a relationship with you over the next couple months. I don't. I'm coming in. I'm going to be honest. But the house, you are selling the house. All the stuff, all the clutter, all the personal items in the house, that's what makes it a home. But that's to that person. So I basically want to kind of strip the home of that.
Okay.
And make the house presentable so that people are seeing the walls, the floors, what they're buying. You know, they're not buying your Disney collection on the wall or your Barbie dolls in the curio cabinet.
Yeah.
So, let's get rid of that stuff and, start from a cleaner slate. And then we could bring back in some accessories that are, a little more today. You might be dealing with an older seller. Maybe they're downsizing, so they're in their 70s or something. Well, their taste is going to be different than the first-time buyer who's rolling in to buy that house. So I want to kind of strip the silk flowers and those taste-specific items.
Yeah, so like any religious paraphernalia as well.
Any religious stuff is removed. I don't care what religion it is. I'm not being non-religious. I was raised in a parochial school, but... Sometimes when I walk into a house and there's 85 crucifixes, I say, I love Jesus too, but
you need to...
The buyer might not.
Box it up. You're moving anyway, so box it up. Put it maybe in a storage unit, something along those lines.
Absolutely. And let me back up a little bit. What is staging?
Good question. What is staging?
Most people think it's bringing furniture into an empty house. Well, that's not the true definition of staging. The true definition is preparing a home for sale. So that could be taking furniture out of the house.
Yeah.
Maybe there's too much furniture, which is a very common thing I run into. You're walking in one of my worst fears when I walk in on a staging consultation, I know I'm going to run into the Mister's lazy boy right in front of the TV so he can see it perfectly.
With the Budweiser, the king of beers and everything. Yeah.
It's not helping sell the house. And I have to train the seller. And I'm going back to the house versus home thing again. This is no longer your home. I mean, even though you're staying here, living here, I'm going to ask you for a month or two, or however long, in your case, a week, to sell the house.
Thank you. I appreciate that endorsement.
You got to look at it as a product that you're putting out there. So you no longer, when the husband says, oh, that's where I sit to watch TV. Okay, well, suffer for a month.
Yeah.
Are you really going to suffer that much by sitting on the sofa? That big lazy boy is not helping if it's sitting in the middle of the room. So we're going to remove it, or You just slide it into a corner where he says, I can't see the TV. Okay.
So to recap what you just said, what is staging? It's preparing the home in a
sale.
way to essentially grab a buyer's attention. It's marketing. At its finest.
Sure. I mean, it could be down to taking a bucket of soap and water and washing your front door.
Yeah.
That's part of staging.
Nothing drives me crazier than working with buyers, and like I work with the majority of sellers, but I work with buyers as well, of course. Showing up to a house and the siding's dirty.
Yep.
Something like that. So
first impressions are the most important.
Can't change first impressions. You can't go back in time. So
yes.
Tip number 1 is put your personal FX and stuff you're not going to need until the next house in a box. Pack it up.
Yes.
Get little as possible, right?
You have to pack it up sooner or later. So let's do it now if it's going to help the house sell.
Yes. I well said. So second thing, I mean, so after you get everything decluttered, you have a blank slate, you have just the furniture, the bare essentials for them to live there in the time. Everything's clean. What's the second thing you're going to tell sellers?
Well, technically that probably is the second thing. Let's back up a little bit. I start looking as I'm pulling in.
Okay.
So it starts outside. So again, staging could be mulching the yard. I always tell people it's the cheapest. Paint and mulch are the 2 quickest and most inexpensive fixes to make a house look prettier. Yeah. It's like the foundation that a girl puts on in the morning. It covers all the bad stuff, and it's not that expensive, and nice neutral colors. But it's all about first impressions, and that starts before they go in the house. Sometimes it's a drive-by.
Yeah.
The agent will send them a home and say, I want to see this. And, probably as an agent, you say, why don't you just drive by first, make sure you like the neighborhood. And well, in that drive-by, they might rule it out because there's weeds and the bushes are not trimmed and, that sort of thing. There's little gnomes all over the yard and statuary. And so clean it up outside first.
I always say the first showing is photo. So, I mean, to have it staged, normally this process happens before the photography. That's something not only just on a drive-by, like you mentioned, that's something that's going to stand out in the photos.
Absolutely.
And if you take a photo like that, you're not putting your best foot forward.
No, and I'm glad you brought up photos. And that's another thing I say to people. You can walk into a house and you have a lot of personal items around and they don't look bad.
Mm-hmm.
But put a photo of that, like say a kitchen counter. Kitchen counters is a good example. Some people think, oh, I have to strip everything. No, you don't have to strip everything. But you don't want a bunch of little things, because little things in a photo, then they start looking like clutter. Mm-hmm. I kind of have a golden rule I'll share. Anything smaller than a bowling ball is clutter in a photo. So, I tell people the importance is not just the people walking in the house, but what's making them decide if they're going to walk in. No. So the photo's got to look sharp and great, and the less personal items in a photo is going to entice them to go visit the home.
You get along well with Andrew, my photographer, who's coming on actually next week.
Okay.
The episode after this is going to be him talking about close to this topic, but
yes,
you definitely the two of you work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
On that houses that is professionally staged, he has a way better time taking photos.
Yes.
So
not constantly moving stuff out of the photos.
What about, decluttering obviously is a big one. Mm-hmm. The curb appeal, everything we talked about that. Past that, I mean, what do you think about paint color? Every time I'm talking to a seller, they're always asking me, should I redo the cabinets? Should I paint the walls?
Yep.
I'm not the expert here. I'm curious to see what your opinion on paint color is.
I think you should be neutral colors.
Okay.
But at the same time, you want pops of colors. So if you're going to clean up a room and start with paint, just go with a nice neutral, light colored. I would say people say, should I go gray or beige? And I go, greige. Go somewhere in between.
Greige.
It's warmer than a gray.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that gray is the most popular right now. Hopefully it's on its way out. I've seen a little too much of it in my business.
I heard it is. I heard the popular color is like a dark blue now.
That is a popular color, but it's not a neutral.
Yeah.
So it's probably good for a bedroom or something like that. But I wouldn't do it in a
kitchen cabinet and stuff.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing that in color.
Yeah,
is,
for kitchen cabinets it is. But I think that's even at the end of its lifestyle. But we'll do another episode on my interior design business too. So yeah, you said about colors. I would go with a nice light neutral. You want it pretty light and bright, but you want it warm. So you don't want to do white. We had a mutual client who, painted his walls white and then painted all the trim gray. I mean, it was backwards. It looked strange, and he was not happy when I very firmly suggested you need to reverse these, as well as the sheen of the paint. If I'm not mistaken, he had a bit of a sheen on the walls. You don't want to do that because the shadows of the light will show every bump. You want
you want like a flat matte color. You don't want like a high gloss on the interior at least.
Correct. Now you can go semi-gloss on the trim. If I'm not mistaken, that particular gentleman did the opposite. And
I remember that it's also the strokes. Like I'm looking around the walls and here, whoever did this did a phenomenal job because it's nice and clean. There was a lot of brush strokes and roller marks there too.
Sloppiness. So.
Yeah.
People don't want to buy projects. I always tell sellers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Want something that's completely done and devil's in the details.
Right. But it is important. You want pops of color.
Yeah.
So if you have the neutral walls and say beige furniture, gray furniture, it's important to bring in, some throw pillows are great for pop color, reds, oranges, something brighter, tie it into some accessories here and there. It really makes things pop. And
yeah, I'm colorblind, so there's lots of shades of gray for me. When you say gray walls, gray neutral, what shade of gray?
My go-to is Revere Pewter.
Revere Pewter.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up.
Yep.
I'm sure it's gonna look just like every other gray, but
yeah. At home, I think I have samples this thick, and they're all grays.
Grays.
And it's a spectrum from just from black to white. There's a whole spectrum of gray in between.
Yeah.
And same with the gray and beige. There's a whole spectrum in between.
The grays.
Within the grays, you've got a whole spectrum. You've got grays that lean purple, grays that lean gray. So it's not overly important in selling as long as it's just neutral, something they can. They're not gonna. I remember selling one going on like 8 months ago now, but I digress. And I remember walking in and going, "Oh no," because she had this bright red, like almost Keller Williams red dining room. That's a pop of color. Yes, that's. I said, "You need to paint that," and she goes, "You think I'm gonna get my money's worth?" I went, "Absolutely." For paint,
without a doubt,
paint is cheap overall.
Yeah,
somebody doesn't want to. Again, staging in general, you might cost a couple $1,000s. But if your house goes on the market and it doesn't sell in the first whatever, you're the expert on this.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks is important right now.
You're going for a price reduction. Is it going to be a $2,000 price reduction? I don't think so.
No, it's got to be significant enough, and this is a separate topic, but significant enough to make a difference. $2,000 is going to hold somebody back to
now.
Offer.
If you would have painted the house like we asked you in the first place for $2,000, you may have sold it by now already at full price. Yeah. So you definitely. I mean, there's statistics out there available all over the place that a staged home, again, I'm not talking about bringing furniture into an empty house, but a staged home where a professional stager has guided the seller on things to spruce up, sell faster and more money.
Empty houses, I don't even, we'll bring you in for fixtures and stuff, and wall paint, but I wouldn't say having the furniture there isn't important. So normally I virtually stage those. My photographer will bring in. I mean, do you think the investment of bringing in furniture is really worth it?
Well,
an empty house?
It depends on the house. It depends on the price range. If you're dealing in a very high-end house, yes, then it might. It might. But, if you're dealing with an average price house and the market is decent like it is now for sellers, I don't really feel it's overly necessary unless it's an unusual space and you go, boy, if you think people are going to walk in and go, what would I do with this room?
Yeah.
Where as a stager, I have an eye for that. I could go in and go, oh, well, you could do this and that and that. In that case, you might want to stage it to show the potential of the room and what it could be used for.
Okay. Yeah, I always tell people, I'll mention the staging and the consultation of bringing you in, and part of listing with my team is we bring him in, and the original consultation is I wouldn't say free, but free to you because our team covers it. It's part of the package that you receive. Beyond that, let's say you give them a list of things to do in that initial consultation. I know you're willing to work with them further. What's kind of the cost range of
$65 an hour afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I have an arsenal of, as my friends will tell you, I'm the king of throw pillows. I have like three rows of shelving in my storage area.
Get along well with my wife.
Yeah.
She loves pillows, man. They're everywhere.
I know. I'm always afraid we're going to end up in a progressive insurance commercial on what not to do as an adult, but
how to avoid turning into your parents.
Yeah. But honestly, they're the quickest way to bring in color and a little style into a bland room. So yeah, throw pillows. I have wall art, canvases. I have throws. I call them tchotchkes, things to set around.
Yeah.
To bring color in, to bring a little artist in. And I'd rather remove the client's 5 things that are this big and bring in one thing that's this big. Because in a picture, it's going to look a hell of a lot better.
It's going to be eye-catching.
Yeah. You don't walk into a furniture showroom or a model home and see collections of Hummel figurines or
you don't see the fingernail clipper sitting on the coffee table.
Exactly. Bathrooms. I don't need to see every piece of makeup that the wife puts on and the nose hair trimmer of the husband. Put that stuff away in the drawers. It's okay to have a cup holder out there and.
Yeah, well, they still have to live and exist in the home, sure, but like
to look lived in.
Yeah,
but not to a specific person. So do generic stuff that everybody, has and uses and doesn't look cluttered.
Yeah, I do my consultation, and I'm more of the sledgehammer, if you will, to your broad strokes. So like, I always tell people, I'm like, just take the stuff off the cabinet. That's like as kind of far as I go. They'll start asking me about paint color. And if I see that and I know we need a more delicate touch, that's kind of where your consultation comes in. Or to be frank, and I'm never afraid to tell people what's right and wrong. Sometimes when there's so much wrong, though, it is easier to hand it off to you because you're an impartial observer.
And I'm this close to finishing my color specialist certification.
Colors.
Yes.
What does that entail? I'm curious now.
What does it entail? Just hours of training on the hues. Well, like I was saying about grays. Gray can be a green hue. It can be a purple hue. It can be... So to explain that to people, just talking about color and why it works and why one color works with another. Yeah. There's a color wheel with all the primary colors and, how this color will go with this color, but this color will not go with this color. Yeah. That sort of thing. So... I think I
still need my wife to dress me, but kidding, kind of.
I see. No, I'm just kidding.
Jeans go with
But
everything.
that's a nice neutral color. That would be fun for the walls.
Well, we'll put this.
And then you could throw some navy blue in with it as a
pop of color.
And then maybe just a little tiny splash of purple, like in the shirt here. Oh, my microphone's in the way.
This is why you're here, part of the team. So. In your experience, and I know this, but you with having real estate experience as well, how would you state both the time and the money of a staged house versus a non-staged house? Because people always ask me the question of, is it worth the time, effort, the money? Like,
I think I answered that with what I said about the price reduction.
Yeah.
A price reduction when it doesn't sell is always going to be a lot more money than the cost to stage it.
Yeah.
And when I say the cost to stage it, I'm talking about bringing a consultant like myself in and guiding you. I'm not talking about furnishing a whole house. That can run very expensive. Yes, it is, because, there are stagers out there who have a warehouse of furniture. I don't do that. I'm more consulting on lived-in houses. And like I said, I have the small warehouse, small arsenal of accessories to spruce it up. But yes, it does get very expensive you need trucks to move all that furniture. You need 55 couches because if I stock one gray couch that's a certain style, it might not fit in a certain home.
Yeah.
So that's why staging gets expensive. And you also have to insure all that stuff.
The infrastructure as well.
The people to haul it in and haul it out. So, staging an empty house, yes, can be expensive. And like I said, depends on the house.
Yeah.
Some need it, some don't. But yeah, my specialty is a lived-in home. Let's declutter it. Let's strip it down and then build it back up with things that are, attractive to today's younger buyers.
So what would timeline look like that? Say I want my house to be sold in the next 2 months, like moved out, ready to go. Where do you come in the process? How long
I would
does
say
it take
very,
you?
very early on, you'd want to bring the stager in
Okay.
because the timeline depends. Is there painting required? Well, how far is the painter backed up? That's out of my control.
Yep.
Is the homeowner going to paint themselves? And that's fine if they're good at it. So I would say you should have the staging consultation early on. Me personally, I could probably turn it in a week or two. But if it's a homeowner doing it himself, or say a flipper doing it himself, like one you and I encountered, drug it out a really long time, probably missed the market.
About 4 or 5 months.
Yes.
And by the time he called me back, the market had shifted. So I think just taking his time cost him about $20,000 in that range.
And he may or may not be the same person that did not consult with a professional and painted everything backwards and it just looked terrible.
Yeah. Well, it is funny you bring him up because during that process, one of the things he mentioned to me about repainting the walls is he said, I wish somebody would have told me that earlier. I said, we would have been. But you thought it wasn't the time to bring us in until you were ready to go. No,
Yes.
the time to bring your real estate professional and the team that he brings behind him, like the photographer, the stager and stuff, is very early because they can guide you in those little things. They could tell you what to start. You just tell them your timeline.
He made expensive mistakes that cost him more. And I think part of his problem was he had the misconception that staging was bringing furniture into his empty house. And it wasn't. It was deal. I remember walking into that house and you're in the foyer with the stairs going up and there was a baluster broken, like missing.
Really?
And he wasn't going to replace it.
That's such a tiny,
and I was like, exactly.
It's such a tiny thing.
I said, that's the first thing I see when I walk in here.
Yeah.
And, this is going to open me up to a whole nother subject. Staging is basically all about the buyer's emotions when they approach or walk into that house.
Yeah.
And the first impression I got walking into that house, well, it started out in the yard, but we're not going to talk about that. Like I said, the first thing I saw was this busted baluster, and I kind of pointed to him, and he goes, that's minor. Nobody's going to care about that. I'm like, yes, they most certainly will. It just tells me like
devil's in the details.
Yes, absolutely.
Because what I find with buyers walking through is they go, oh, there's this little thing, this little maintenance issue. What else? What other big things are wrong?
Exactly. Tells you about the seller. He doesn't care enough to.
It's almost, understand the psychology of staging a little bit better than I do.
Sure.
I have a baseline understanding, but obviously with the fine details, that's where you come in.
But what you do know is your experience with buyers.
Yes.
And their reactions.
Yes.
And they're very vocal with their reactions, walking up to the property, entering the property. We briefly touched on the front door being nice and clean. One of the reasons is while you're sitting there trying to get the key out, this is the potential buyer. They're looking around, and if it's all cobwebs and peeling paint, what is their first impression before they even enter that house?
I find a lot, if it's a no, they pull in the driveway before I even have the key in the door. They already know the answer. But so I'm more of a marketing and negotiation expert, where you're more of the human psychology of how a house looks, and I get it from experience. But I'm saying my take on it and what I've noticed through experience with both buyers and sellers, it's almost like a flow. You have to drag somebody's interest from the front door in through in almost a certain direction. Like, would you say that's kind of true?
Absolutely, 110%. Yes, it's all about how they feel. And he used to go, I'm not getting the feeling. And one time we walked into a house, he goes, I've got the feeling, And it was an emotional thing. Yeah. And that seller, I could tell, was very OCD, very detailed. Everything was clean, and so was he. So it was a match.
Right. So, well, Chris, I thank you. I think we're running a little low on time, so I want to thank you for coming on. I feel like this is some great information.
Very welcome.
We could definitely have you back on to get more specific information, because, again, it's very hard to explain what you do in such a short period of time. There's so many different aspects of it.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions or stuff you'd like to hear from Chris, or you want to talk to him directly, what's kind of the best way to get in touch with you with your interior design business?
So I have a Facebook page, Staged House of the Lehigh Valley. You could message me on there.
Okay.
Text 610-730-8683.
Yeah.
Or my full name, Christopher Mesch at ymail.com. Yes, Y, not G.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to, if you have any interior design things, feel free to reach out to him. Obviously, you know, to reach out to me if you have any seller issues, and Chris will be in touch on that.
Absolutely.
If you're looking to get your home sold in the future, the Lehigh Valley, I can kind of help you guide.
Or if he just sold you a home and you need to do some interior design work. In fact, you'll probably see that on my Facebook page. The more recent posts are interior design jobs. They weren't necessarily for selling a house, but it's just the way the business morphed. Really quick story. One of your colleagues hired me for a woman. She had a beautiful home in the West End, but it wasn't selling.
Yeah.
She couldn't figure out why. I walked in. The place was like a museum filled with antiques, beautiful antiques. Way too much furniture. Way. It was just jam-packed. This woman hated me. She thought I was Satan because I walked in there and told her she had to get rid of half of it.
Mm-hmm.
She had a beautiful stone fireplace with shelves on either side. They were way too packed with stuff. I took about 50% of the stuff out, and she stood there going, "It's empty. It looks empty." I said, "It looks empty to you because you've been staring at it for years." So long story short, I was the devil. This woman hated me.
Mm-hmm.
She moved into her new house, hired me to do all the interior work on the new house.
Yeah.
We are now like best of friends, and we crack up. I had pizza with her yesterday. So I'm not
what
this
kind of
evil
pizza?
person. Plain. I'm a very plain person.
Oh, like what restaurant?
Oh, I was just running around crazy and I was starving. It was over Tillman Street by the old Kmart. See, now I'm dating myself.
Oh, okay.
People would say by Planet Fitness. I said by the old Kmart.
I also say by the old Kmart.
Yes.
Okay.
I was walking up to the front door to grab a quick bite to eat. I just come from Sherwin-Williams with another client.
Yeah.
Picking wallpaper. Yes, wallpaper can be cool. And all of a sudden I hear this banging on the wall, and it's my friend Wendy.
Aww.
We just crack up. She's so funny. But yeah, we started out rough. And
I love
by the way,
this.
her house sold then.
Oh.
After there was a couple price reductions before I came in.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I wanted her to do was paint all the woodwork. It was painted a horrendous. Wendy, are you watching? I hope not. A horrendous colonial blue.
I'm gonna send this to her. I'm gonna make sure to find her and send this to her now.
And that was not done, but
yeah,
it sold. I'm gonna say within 2 weeks after we kind of restaged it.
Okay. And well, we did our outro and then kept going. So I will let everybody run. And
isn't that known as an encore?
Yeah,
that was our encore performance.
I don't think we're the Beatles, but
pretty close.
No, we'll definitely have to have you back on. If anybody has any interior design needs, reach out to Chris. If anybody has any real estate needs or
reach out to Mike.
Staging is involved, reach out to me, 570-977-8051 or myname.com.
If you forget his number, call mine. I'll give you his number and vice versa.
Chris is a good guy. But right before you go, I always ask people, what's your favorite part of living in the Lehigh Valley?
I think the park systems are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The proximity to New York City and Philadelphia, because that way if you like the big city, but you can come home where it's a little quieter and safer. I think we have beautiful trees, which I guess is part of the park system.
Yeah.
Just a big fan of the Lehigh Valley.
So like the nature and proximity to
bigger cities, but yet I don't want to live in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
Community.
We have a lot of commuters.
Yeah, we do. I'm born and raised here, and as a younger person, I couldn't wait to get out of this town, and all my friends who did ended up coming back. I never left, and I'm kind of glad I didn't.
It is phenomenal. I agree with you on that.
They're pretty. We need more stores, though. There's a lot of good stores.
There are a lot of good boutique mom and pop stores. There's so much jam packed into this area. I mean, we're the third highest populace, right behind Pittsburgh or Philly is second. I mean, we are pretty much we're three cities lumped in the one. But all right, guys, thank you so much, and see you next week.